I'm joined now by Maltese Ambassador Natasha Meli-Daudey. Mrs. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining me here at Radio Poland.
Thank you for having me.
You're the Maltese Ambassador, and the reason why you are here today is because Malta has taken over the presidency of the EU for the next, how many months?
6 months.
For the next 6 months. Is this an important thing?
It is indeed an important thing for Malta. First of all, this is the very first time that Malta is taking it. It's one of the last countries of the 10 that had joined together with Poland.
In 2004.
In 2004. Estonia will take after us, and then the whole 10 countries would have taken the presidency. It is very important for Malta because this is the opportunity for us to be able to lead the European Union for these 6 months and to leave our imprint on the leadership of the EU and hopefully on decision making. But it is also extremely important because of the juncture that the EU finds itself in. We all agree that the EU is facing the greatest challenges of its 60-year history. And
are you referring to Brexit? And are you referring to the immigration crisis?
I'm referring to unfortunately, to a various number of challenges. Obviously, Brexit is one of them. For the very first time in history, one country has decided that it wants to leave the European Union, and during our presidency, according to indications, it will be in March. The UK will trigger Article 50, which will start the 2-year period for the exit of the United Kingdom from the EU. But then there is also migration. There are unprecedented waves of migration coming from the central Mediterranean, coming from the east. So that is creating a lot of pressure, mostly on the peripheral countries, but on the whole of the EU. There's a rise in populism in the continent and beyond, which is having an impact on the political status quo as we know it. There's also a lot of economic stagnation on the continent, and this is having negative impact on the daily life of our citizens, their employment, their wealth. And as a result of this, we are seeing a bigger disenfranchisement and disconnect between the citizens and the elite. And all this put together, and obviously we mustn't forget the security issue. Our citizens are feeling insecure and unprotected with all that's happening around us. All this put together is putting into question the actual relevance and existence of the European Union. Our citizens are saying, is it worth having the EU? Is the EU working for our good, or is it actually putting and making our situation worse?
In fact, the exact time that this happened, the time frame of the Maltese presidency of the EU was one of the points tackled by European Council President Donald Tusk, a Pole he happens to be, during the handover ceremony which happened on the 11th of January. Let's listen to what he said.
It is good fortune that the Maltese presidency comes at this extraordinary time, a time full of new challenges and dramatic upheavals. In these 6 months, in Rome, we will celebrate the 60th anniversary of the treaty. And the Brexit procedure will formally be launched. The spring will also be a demanding test for the whole of the EU with regard to migration, especially on the central Mediterranean route. Such a sequence of events requires leadership which is competent, experienced, and sensitive.
Competent, experienced, and sensitive. Can the Maltese presidency provide these three very key issues?
Well, I feel very humbled by what the president of the European Union Council, Donald Tusk, said. I believe we can, and we are striving to do so. It's true we are small, and we are very conscious of the reality of our nation and the size of our nation. But it's true that our history has put us at the crossroads of cultures and civilizations, and we have a step in the Mediterranean and a step in the EU and in Europe, and we do tend to understand the different problems, also because we ourselves, we are faced by these problems. So I do believe we can. We have proved time and again, despite our size, to be able to find solutions to problems. Last year, actually now we can say it's in 2015, in November we hosted the Valletta Summit on Migration, and it was very successful in trying to find a solution and address the issue of migration from the external point of view with third countries in Africa. We even managed to come up with a common declaration on climate change during the Commonwealth Heads of State and Government meeting. And maybe in Poland, not many are aware what the Commonwealth is. It's the group of ex-British colonies, which we form part of. And they're very different and diverse. They go from Malta to countries in Africa, to Canada, to Australia, to India. Very different countries with different opinions on the subject. And we managed it. Our Prime Minister went to Paris and presented the common declaration agreed by all. So we're definitely determined, and we're going to work very hard to do so. However, it's important to explain as well that the job we have ahead of us is quite a big task, and we are remaining very humble as well, in the sense that we are not pretending to solve the whole problem in these 6 months. It's impossible. The task that we have ahead of us will take generations, in fact, to solve. But what we would like to do as Malta is to take opportunity of the situation, to seize the opportunity and put the EU back on track, on the right track. And we will cast the right path for the EU for the coming years. It will take years to find the proper solutions. But if we start now on the positive track, then those that will come behind us will continue on the work, and hopefully in the amount of years that it will need, the right solutions will be taken, and the EU citizens will start believing and trusting the European Union once again.
Is it a case of, paraphrasing US President-elect Donald Trump, is it a case of making Europe great again?
Well, we have to start from the very basics at this point. We have to regain the trust of our citizens, because citizens feel a big disconnect with the EU. And in fact, that's one of the main theme of our presidency is reunion, okay? Reconnect. Listen to the citizens. What are their concerns? What are their issues? Brussels has many a time been accused of taking decisions that do not necessarily concern the citizens and being completely removed from the daily life of our citizens. So that's the very basic thing. And then, yes, why not making the EU great again? Let's face it, it has been a very successful project. We have had 2 devastating world wars on our continent, and the EU has not only managed to avoid any direct conflict in the 60 years of its existence, but we have built a single market. We have done so many things on so many areas that it's not easy, and we shouldn't just throw everything away like that because maybe we are facing some difficult moments in this juncture.
Obviously, you are mentioning very big tasks ahead. The fact that Malta is so small, it is one of the smallest, if not the smallest country in the European Union. During the handover ceremony, Maltese Prime Minister Joseph Muscat said that in this case, size does not matter. Let's listen to what he said.
Celebration today. I welcome you to the smallest country in the European Union. Our Iżda bħala pajjiż indipendenti u sovran, aħna għadna fiż-żożija tagħna. F'Marzu li ġej f'Ruma l-Unjoni Ewropea se timmarka.
Quite a young country, he said, but as we all know, youth is full of vigor and full of energy and full of very high hopes and dreams. Are these just dreams, or will Malta manage to put its plans into real, tangible actions?
I think we will. Now, let's make it very clear for those who do not understand the way the European Union works, the way it works very, very, very clearly. We're not on our own. We will be also supported by the institutions. So, this is not just Malta and its people who will be working. There's a whole structure behind us as well that will support us. But Malta, in its capacity as the president of the EU Council, we will give them the leadership, and that is what we're going to try to do, and we will manage. We're very determined. We're remaining very humble, and I repeat, what we are trying to do is not to do the big things, although the to-do list is enormous, because if we go through all our priorities and what we intend to achieve, it looks enormous. But I repeat, what we are trying to achieve is to obtain agreement on also small things that touch the everyday life of the European Union citizens. And there are various. Now, if we start already discussing and focusing on the priorities, these are various. Our citizens are not expecting us to discuss intellectual topics, the reform of the European Union. It is not what they need at the moment. What they need, most probably, our Prime Minister, he really likes to use this term, is the bread and butter issues. We have to go back to those issues that touch our citizens on a daily basis, because those that are being hit by the precarious situations, that's what they want to see progress on. And those issues, there are a number of them that we would like to continue the discussion on some, because the discussion has already started, or start the discussion on others, and try to obtain a conclusion on those, and then at least the citizens will see a little difference when they travel, when they won't have roaming charges anymore, when they are purchasing objects online, and they're not discriminated against because they're buying things from Poland or from Malta, whereas citizens from other countries have access to these objects at a lower price, or even free of charge. So it's issues like this that will make a difference, and it's issues like this that we want to push and to see them coming to fruition by the end of our 6 months. And then there are harder topics that also need leadership, that we will not shy away from. We know that there are difficult issues such as migration. We will start discussing them. We hope to get and obtain an agreement. But it's also important to make the difference between the hardest issues and the ones that have a better potential of obtaining an agreement.
Now, Malta might be pushing for certain changes within the EU, but Valletta is a very far distance away from Warsaw. Will the average Pole be feeling any changes from the Maltese presidency as a result?
Yes, as I already mentioned, there are issues under our second priority, which is the single market, which I believe every citizen in every country will benefit from. I already mentioned roaming, I mentioned the geo-blocking, but from a Polish perspective, we have the energy sector, on which we are trying to push, the third-party supply. It's an issue on which we are trying to push, and which is very relevant definitely for Poland. The digital single market as a whole is very important for all citizens because we can see more employment over there. So in that priority, which comes under the single market, I believe that every citizen will benefit from. If we take the social inclusion, if we manage to shatter a little bit more the glass ceiling for women, all Polish women will benefit from. Gender equality, domestic violence. These are issues that touch us all. Rights for LGBTI people, all those are across the board. It's not just for Poland. Then if we go to the neighborhood, under the European neighborhood title, we have obviously a priority which is more directed towards the southern neighborhood, the Mediterranean and the Middle East. And obviously, as Malta, it might appear that it is more important for us because it's our region. But the instability that we have in the region is not only important to address for us and our neighbors, but it could have an effect on the whole European Union region. But it's not just the Mediterranean that we're focusing on. We're focusing also on the Eastern neighborhood. We know that the Eastern neighborhood is extremely important for the EU as a whole, but also for a country like Poland and the other neighbors. We understand that peace and stability in a region are extremely important for its neighbors. And we will be working a lot on this issue. There is the Eastern Partnership Summit that will come up, not during our presidency, but during the Estonian presidency, one that come after us. But we're committed to do all the groundwork in order for that summit to be a very big success. And then you have another priority, which is also very important for Poland, because like Malta, Poland is a maritime country, which is the maritime issues. Maritime issues are not always given the importance that they are due, but we are trying to push to transform the maritime sector into a veritable industry and economy. And countries like Poland will stand to benefit from that, because you will have a lot of creation of jobs, more links between countries, and that is definitely also another priority where Poland as a country tends to benefit from. Security, we're pushing for security, and Polish people, like all the EU citizens, feel that there is more need for the EU to invest more, to protect its borders, to protect its citizens as a result. And then we have the first priority, which is migration. I leave it to the end because that is one of the priorities maybe on which Malta and Poland might not always have the same view. It's important, nevertheless, to explain to the listeners that Malta is a country which is at the very forefront of the influx of migrants. It has been since the very first few days when the crisis erupted way back in 2004, when we actually became members. That's when the first boat people started arriving into our country. And although we do understand that certain EU countries view this issue from a security point of view, because security is linked with the migration crisis, but one must not forget that countries like us, like Greece, like Italy, the other Eastern countries now that are facing the influx from the East, they also see it from the point of view of solidarity. And if we
an important word in Poland.
Such an important word in Poland. And if we go back to what we have been saying, that EU citizens are feeling that they have lost trust in the EU because they feel that the EU doesn't deliver enough. In this case, one must not forget that the citizens of these countries, they would like to help and to protect the refugees and the migrants that deserve protection, because if one day, we're found in the same situation, we want that, but they also need solidarity from the EU member states.
Thank you very much. Maltese Ambassador Natasha Meli-Daudey, thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all for Warsaw Forum this week. Goodbye.